Hey, thanks for joining me. So as many of you know that have watched my channel, I'm a pretty big fan of kit lenses. I like the quality you get out of them, I like the value, but it's important to understand how to get the best performance out of them. Now, the history of kit lenses is kind of interesting. If you go back to 1979, you'll find Nikon introducing the Series E lenses. And they made a whole range of lenses, a bunch of different primes, as well as I think 3 zooms, and they were all made less expensively. They had a lot of plastic in them that Nikon typically didn't use, and they didn't even use the Nikkor name, that legendary lens name that Nikon has used for years. Instead, they just called them Nikon Series E. And the Series E lenses of that day, I mean, they look pretty decent, but they are, they've got a lot of plastic inside, lens mounts, metal, but they, they were just less expensive to manufacture. What's really interesting, however, is when Nikon decided to build these, this particular lens, the 50mm f1.8, and I'm going to be doing a review on this in the near future as I want to kind of highlight this lens. Nikon originally was tasked with, the designers were tasked with shrinking the 50mm f2 lens and bringing it up to f1.8. Kind of a big task. Make it smaller, but make it a tiny bit faster. And in doing so, the designers actually took the 6-element planar design that the 50mm f2 is based on, and they thinned out the lens elements to make them all smaller, and they produced this lens. And in doing this revision of the design, they actually improved the lens. It actually has less distortion and less some other aberrations, chromatic aberration, I think, primarily. The lens design got better. It actually improved. So this lens actually has kind of an almost cult following. They're super cheap. I'm going to be doing a review on this. But this was kind of Nikon's start into the kit lens era. And they introduced a whole range of lenses called Nikon Series E. And that kind of kicked off the whole kit lens thing, where you could buy a lens, with a camera body as part of a kit, and it was less expensive. And you could always, buy the more expensive lenses and mount on the same camera, but you could also buy the more affordable ones. And this Nikon FG was one of those early cameras that the kit lenses came on. Another neat little camera I'll have to do a review at some point. But anyway, so kit lenses today really do have a lot of value. I know some people really kind of decry the way they're made. There's a lot of plastic in them, but I think it's important to understand that the technology of polymers, if we want to really call them what they are, goes way back. I mean, they were making cameras out of bakelite in the 30s. So the idea of plastic cameras and plastic parts in cameras and lenses is not new. In fact, it's a very mature science, and the quality that we're able to get today is just worlds better than it was just a short time ago. Now, a lot of these lenses have polymer or plastic lens mounts. They have a lot of plastic in the bodies, and yet they still manage to achieve really amazing design. But there's actually some advantages of the plastic, or the polymer as it were, in some of these lenses. Number one, they absorb impact better. If you drop one of these lenses, it's less likely than a metal lens to sustain damage. They often, because of their lightweight and the nature of the polymer or plastic these are made of, that tends to give a little bit and spring back to shape, these tend to absorb impact better, and they're lighter, so they actually often are more durable in that regard. The other thing is this. If I've got a kit lens on a somewhat expensive camera, this kit lens, like this is 99 bucks, you can buy this. I think this one you can get for 100 or maybe a little bit less, certainly used. But the camera body is a $300 or $400 camera body. If I drop this accidentally and it rips the rear mount off this kit lens, it's going to be a lot cheaper to replace this kit lens than it is to try to get a new lens mount on the front of that camera body, or to replace the camera body. If something has to go, I would much rather it be the cheap kit lens. Now, I'm very careful, and I don't drop my cameras if I can avoid it at all. I better find some wood to knock on, because I'll probably drop something now, but I'm very careful. But if something should happen, the polymer lenses actually often survive it better than metal lenses. So there's that. The optical quality of many of these lenses also too, kind of like that Nikon Series E, they're not necessarily that inferior. Now, yes, they are typically variable aperture in terms of zoom lenses. They don't maintain or hold the full image quality throughout the entire zoom range. We're going to talk about that. There's some, certainly because of the lower price, there are some things that aren't quite as good. But if you know the limitations of the lens, you can still wring a lot of performance out of it. So let's talk about how to get the best performance out of your kit lens. Now, this starts with education. You need to learn about the lens. There's a lot of reviews online for a lot of these different lenses, and if you can find one that actually shows some lens tests that show how it performs at various focal lengths in terms of resolution and chromatic aberration, things like that, you can determine what focal lengths and apertures are going to work best for that lens. So it's important that you learn about the lens and its characteristics. The second thing is use that information to your advantage. So most zoom lenses, when we talk about focal length, are going to perform best, and this is just my experience with these modern kit lenses, they're going to perform best if you don't zoom them all the way out. Now, even zoomed all the way out to 150, this lens performs decently well, but it performs markedly better if I stop at about maybe 125. In that, after that focal length, the quality of the image starts to deteriorate a bit. So if I just kind of in my mind try to limit its use to the not quite maximum focal length, then I get better image quality. In some cases, you're better off stopping at, say, 100 or 125 millimeter and then zooming in on or cropping in on the image than you are actually zooming all the way out. So you can experiment with that a little bit, but I've often found that by not zooming all the way out, stopping a little bit short, even if I need a bit more magnification, I can crop in on the image, I still get a better image than if I zoom all the way out. Now, with a lens like this 14 to 42, you can actually use that nature of the lens to your advantage. Now this one, kind of like the 40 to 150, doesn't get its best image quality at 42 millimeter. It's best if you stop a little short of that, maybe at 35. Now, if I want the maximum resolution and image quality, then I stop maybe at around 35. And if I need to go to 40, I'm probably just going to put this lens on instead, because at 40, this lens will outperform this one at 40. So I'll switch. But if I'm shooting something like a portrait of somebody and I don't want the maximum sharpness of the lens, I'll go ahead and zoom out to 42, because it is going to get a tiny bit softer. And if I'm using a wide aperture, then I can soften the image a little bit. And for portraits, that's often desirable. You don't want razor sharp, crisp detail on a woman's skin. Unless you're trying to do a character study of some kind that really shows that ruggedness, yeah, you don't want to do that. So again, you can use the focal length to your advantage. So, but if you know how that lens performs, then you can kind of limit how you use the lens to accommodate that. Now, most of these zoom lenses perform often at their very best at the shortest focal length. And then they hold that performance fairly well until you get to close to the maximum focal length. And then they start to drop off a little bit. It's just the nature of the design. They're trying to sell a lens with a certain range, but without making the lens more expensive and bigger and heavier, they kind of have to limit the way that it performs. Now, again, all these things are made to a budget and a price and a size. Certainly this 14 to 42 is much more compact than, say, the 14 to 40 f2.8 Olympus. It's much bigger, it's faster, it's a fixed aperture, and it's got amazing image quality throughout its focal length range, but it's almost twice the size and double the weight. And so sometimes the size and the weight is enough of an advantage to make the kit lens, you know, especially for travel and things like that, a real advantage. Now the third thing, and this is the last one, is use the best aperture. Again, if you've studied your lenses, you'll know that a lot of these lenses work their best at maximum aperture and then down a couple of stops. When you stop a micro Four Thirds lens down past, certainly past f8, but in some cases past f5.6, you start to lose image quality. Again, if you studied some of the reviews on the lenses, or if you find one with a lens test and all the resolution charts and stuff, you can see that, and you can know which apertures give you the best image quality. Now, in most cases, stopping down 1 or 2 stops is going to give you, you know, like on a lens like this that's f3.5 to 5.6, if I'm shooting it at 14 millimeter, so the maximum aperture is f3.5, the best image quality is going to happen around f5.6. You know, different lenses are different, and that's why it's important to study your lenses. But if you need a generalization, you can stop down a couple of stops from maximum, and you're probably getting real close to the best image quality. For a lot of micro Four Thirds lenses, even fairly fast ones, that's going to happen around f4 or f5.6. Past that, diffraction limiting starts to set in, the image quality starts to drop off. A lot of micro Four Thirds lenses will perform well even at f8, but usually past f8 things start to fall apart a bit. So that's really just it, the 3 things. This is not going to be a super long video, but if you understand those 3 things, learn about your lens, use the best focal lengths, and use the best apertures, you're going to get the best you can. You're going to wring the best quality you can out of these lenses. And it's really true of any lenses, even your expensive lenses. If you'll study the lenses and then use them where they work the best, you're going to get the best out of them. Anyway, so that's it. I hope that's helpful. If you have any thoughts or questions, I hope you'll leave me a comment. I always love hearing from you. And as always, thanks for watching. You ready to go? Yeah? Yeah, is it time to go? Okay.